Hey patrons. So I think that for me, one of the big things that has come out of all of this with my mom passing has been that I think I'm just kind of lost. You know what I mean? Like, I, it's not that and I said this to Noelle, and I thought about it last night just driving around. I feel like I'm just lost. Like I don't know. And I told her I sometimes feel like I'm a baby, even though I moved away from home a long time ago, and, I've been on my own for quite some time. I'm 41. But I feel almost abandoned. Noelle said, some people feel like they're orphans, and I guess that's a good description. And I know everything will be okay, but I just feel like, there's this hole, and I can think of many different things to try to fit in that hole, but it's never going to fill it. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do I navigate this? Like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, how do I fix that? Because keep in mind, like, my mom is the closest person that I talk to outside of Noelle and the kids. If I can't get Noelle, or we're talking or what have you, and I'm thinking, well, I should go call mom, And I would call her often, Probably I should have called her more. But typically it'd be once a week I would call. And I noticed that she started to want to talk less and less. I would say probably 6 to 8 months ago, she wanted to talk less and less. And I would be talking to her, she'd be talking, and then after a while, she'd just get really quiet. Now, my mom had her shows that she would like to watch. And if those happen to be on, obviously, she's going to kind of ignore you. But it wasn't like that before. And when my sister was taking her to the hospital, because keep in mind, towards the end here, she was in the hospital twice. First time she went, she couldn't really breathe, and so my sister took her there. They said everything's fine. So when I talked to her, she seemed okay. She sounded like herself. But I had noticed that, and even Noelle had noticed, because I had my mom on speakerphone, that her voice sounded different. And we're talking probably a month or so ago. Her voice just sounded different. And I think with my sister, my sisters, they live there, they're used to being around her so much that they don't notice those differences. Being away, whenever you do hear a voice, you can tell that difference. And there's a difference there. And even Noelle said that. But I didn't really think much about it. My mom has been battling bladder cancer for a decade. She never told me that. She told me that in 2013 she had it, but she had it prior to that. I only found out afterwards. But she didn't want to worry me. And even, in fact, the doctor she had at the time said, there's just a spot we don't really know. There's no sense in telling all your kids just yet. Just wait. But later on, they confirmed that it was. She still didn't tell me. And she had bladder cancer longer than Noelle and I have been together. And I didn't know that. But keep in mind, when my mom found out about it, I had already freshly gotten out of a divorce. I was getting my life together and all of that. And I think that she didn't want to bother me and worry me. I think had I known, things would have been a little bit different. Maybe not. I don't know. So anyhow, I noticed that her voice was starting to change a little bit. And when she went to the hospital, this is not a big deal. She comes back home. She sounds the same. And then before I know it, she's back in the hospital again. I didn't even get a chance to really call her after that. I called her that time. And my sister's like, same thing. She can't breathe, this, that, and the other. And so with bladder cancer, they gave an option of you can remove the bladder. My mom didn't want to do that. And I respect my mom. Whatever she says goes, and I respect that. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at God. I'm not mad at my mom. I'm not any of that. Like, I understand, the cycle of life. I get it. But it still doesn't make dealing with it any easier. So had she done the bladder removal, she may still be alive today, but at the same time, Noelle brought up a good point. It may not have been the case. It may have sped it up. And my mom had been through a lot of different surgeries, from her eye surgery to spurs in her knees. She had gout. She had a bunch of different stuff that she dealt with. And so I understood, or no, spurs in her back, I'm sorry. So I understood that she did not want to do this. So we respected that. She went through, did the chemotherapy, never lost her hair. She always, you know, at the very end, she had her hair. Now, that was something that she was worried about, but they didn't give her the massive doses that you would normally get if you were my age or whatnot. I mean, my mom was 86. And so, you know, in her mid-70s all the way down, she's been battling this. So my family on my mom's side are just strong. You know, if you look at my uncles, they look like tanks. These are big, strong guys. In fact, her brother, who's 85, old man, he was looking at my mom prior to her passing, and he, you know, put his head down and turned, and I thought that he was going to cry because my other uncle did. Which, that uncle's bigger than me, taller than me. Just, they're very thick guys, you know. They're not really fat, they're just stocky. So I was pulling him towards me because I didn't want him to fall on my mom, but I had a hard time pulling him. Like, he was so stout, I couldn't really pull him. And to be honest with you, he wasn't crying or anything. He was just, I guess, sad about it, obviously. But it was hard for me at 41, in good shape, relatively, to pull an 85-year-old man to me without putting some real strength into that. It was hard to do. This is a man who still works every day. He owns a junkyard. He's moving all these heavy car parts and stuff, a lot of by hands. I mean, my mom comes from strong people. I'm not just saying that. Like, on my dad's side, not so much. But on my mom's side, yeah. So the fact that my mom dealt with this cancer for over a decade, and even till the end was still very strong, doesn't surprise me. And so I thought, given the fact that she has beaten it so much and it was gone at one point, that everything would be fine. But it wasn't. So the bladder cancer apparently got much bigger. Now, the doctor down at Vanderbilt basically injected some chemotherapy, I think, or chemo into the bladder, or into the tumor. And the intention was to destroy it that way, because Mama was getting pretty weak. Now, they didn't notice the other issues that were going on, because, again, her age and everything else is working against her. Now, I remember a few weeks ago, she was saying that she had a cold, because I was saying, you know, we got sickness here in the house. We're all blowing our nose and hawking and all this. And she said, you know, me too. You know, we've been sick here too. So my mom, on top of having cancer, was sick. Now, this is nothing new, because she would get sick every now and again, like anybody else, with a cold or the flu. And fine. This time, she had it, and it made her body weak. She had infections. So then she ended up developing a tumor on her nose. Now, my sister said it started off as a pimple, and literally within 3 weeks, it grew into a massive growth, just that fast. My sister sent me a picture. The day I asked her to send me a picture, and by the time I got there a week later, the mass had grown almost double in size. It grew that fast. And they thought it was MRSA, because, you know, the whole infection and the nose, and that staph is there and all that type of stuff, and she was sick. That's what they thought. I thought maybe she had scratched it or messed with it, because I had something similar when I was sick on my stomach. And they thought I would have to go through, you know, basically antibiotics through IV. Because once it gets into your blood, it's a problem. So they weren't really sure. So my mom didn't want to really eat much. She was having a hard time breathing. And then later, the doctors were running a bunch of different tests to see what's going on. Well, I flew in, talked to my mom, was able to do video chats with her and the kids. My mom said, don't scare these kids with this cancer. And she was talking about her nose, and she was talking about her whole overall condition. So I said, okay. But I wanted my mom to see my kids. They didn't come with us, or come with me. Noelle didn't either, to Bowling Green, because again, I didn't know how serious this was. But something told me to pack dress clothes, because it could be the final time I see my mom. Something told me. There's a lot of things that I thought about ahead of time that said, you should do this. Like, I started, for the first time ever, recording phone conversations with my mom probably 6 months ago. So I started back in November of last year recording phone calls when I would talk to her. Never ever thought of that. And I just thought, you know what, I may need to do that. And this was before we knew anything. It was as serious as it was. She had cancer, but we didn't know it was that serious. So I just started doing it. As far as going there, I said, you know what, I probably need to go. My sister kept asking, it'd be great to have you here. And, Wells, like, you really should go. And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. And something said, go. Book the ticket. Something said, pack clothes, dress shoes, sunglasses. And I did. I told Noelle, I said, hopefully I won't need this, but I feel like I need to take it. And when they actually got through with all the tests, they said that not only does she have the bladder cancer, which is actually just went haywire, it grew, but it has metastasized. So it went up to her lung. So the breathing issue, because they saw a mass on her lungs, they thought it was fluid, and they thought it was due to the cold and all of that and the stuff that she had, and they thought the infections and all this. Don't know if there was really an infection. I'm not sure about that, but the mass turned out to be lung cancer. So basically, it went from her bladder up to her lung. Not only that, she had a mass on her stomach. The bladder cancer went to her stomach and literally started to form cancer there. So when she didn't feel like eating or when she felt full, that was the reason why. And the mass would get very hard and very firm. She had a blockage. So at that point, if she were to eat something, she's not going to be able to poop. It's not going to come out because there's a blockage there, also in the intestines. So as you can see, it took a hell of a lot to take my mother out in terms of cancer. It took a lot. She went from one issue in terms of bladder cancer to having stomach cancer, lung cancer, and then having a tumor on her nose and basically being blocked to where she can't use the bathroom. And that's exactly what took her. Now, me, I wouldn't have survived half of that. In the condition I'm in now, which is fairly healthy, I wouldn't have been able to survive half of that. But yet she's 86, be 87 next month. And it took all of that in order for her to be weakened. And at the end, something told me too, to go and talk to her. At this point, she's no longer responsive. She's no longer talking. Before she would cough and she would ask for water, which she would be able to pee, but she couldn't poop. And I think my mother would be okay with me talking about this. But she no longer asked for that. She no longer acknowledged, no longer, if you would say something, she wouldn't wake up. She would just stay asleep. And she stayed like that for several hours. And her voice, and her breathing was just different. I went up to her and I said, because I asked my sister, was she upset about anything? And she said, no, not upset, just disappointed that you had moved so far away. You're her only son. She was disappointed in that. And that hurt because I didn't know. I didn't know that. But I understand because I have kids and I would selfishly want them near me too. I don't want them to go anywhere, right? And that's all it was. And so I told my mom, I said, I'm sorry about that. And yeah, I said a bunch of other stuff, and I, was starting to tear up, and I said, Mom, it's going to be okay. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to really miss you. And my mom had, on top of all this, she also had 7 mini strokes during this whole escapade, during all of this. She had 7 mini strokes, but it didn't paralyze her face really until at the very end, whenever she was in the casket. You can kind of see a little bit there. But on her right side, her hand, she couldn't use it. I was on the right side of her when I talked to her. Now, this is literally 20 minutes later. After talking to her, she would be gone. My mother's hand twitched. And I saw this, and I'm like, her hand just twitched. Keep in mind, her face didn't move, nothing. Hand twitched. I kept talking to her and rubbing her arm. And all of a sudden, her hand just started shaking. And she lifted as I was crying and talking to her, saying, goodbye, Mom. You were the best mom, and this is the facts. The best mom anyone could have. She lifted her arm up, trying to touch me and try to comfort me. Given everything that's going on, given the fact that she's really and truly, her breathing now is way different. I mean, she would breathe, and then, like she would basically inhale, exhale, and it would be a long exhale at that point. And she was able to lift her arm up. And my sisters were telling her, it's okay. It's okay. We're all going to stick together. We're all going to make sure everything's all right. And she calmed down. And her hand stopped twitching. And they thought she was having a stroke, but I don't think it was. I think that was her. I mean, this is on her paralyzed side, trying to comfort me. And then that was it. I would say probably after that, I, cooled down a little bit, calmed down. And we were sitting watching TV, and then I'd say 20 minutes after that, she was gone. But at that moment, I felt this isn't true. Like, this didn't happen. Like this isn't reality. So I leave from the room and I go and I try to call Noelle because I had been texting her and she didn't reply. She was with the kids and I don't know where her phone was. So I called and I said, I've been trying to text you. And I told her what happened. And so she was upset. And I was about to cry just hearing Noelle's voice and the everything. Because Noelle is crazy about my mom. She loves my mom. My mom loved her. But something stopped me from crying. Now, I'm not someone who believes in a whole bunch of religious stuff and all of that, but something felt like it just was not necessarily wrapping me or holding me, but it just felt like something was just with me. I'm in a room that's pretty large, fireplace there and everything, and because she was in hospice at the end. After the hospital. I mean, she was in hospice for only 3 days after being moved there from the hospital. And so I'm in this room by myself, and it just felt like something was comforting me enough to get through talking to Noelle and talking to the kids, because Noelle told the kids. And I was able to calm the kids down enough to where the kids started to comfort Noelle. And I don't know where I got the strength from, because it just happened. Like, literally it happened. 2-3 minutes later, I go out and I call Noelle. Because as I'm walking, I'm just crying. But as I walk into that room, and I'm on the phone with her, I tell her this is just strange. I feel okay. I don't know how to explain it. I just feel okay. That everything's going to be okay. So for me, it was a very exhausting and difficult moment. And now I'm kind of just going through the motions, figuring out what to do. And I told Noelle, like, who am I going to call whenever I'm just wanting to call? If I have a question about parenting or about how, about a particular dish, how to make it or what have you, what am I going to do? And so it's things like that shock me. It's been a week. Today is officially a week that she's been gone. And it's strange, man. I'm not like sitting here crying and boohoo crying. Even at the funeral, there was not a lot of people that were doing that. There was 2 people, her brother and her sister, that there was one moment when they broke down. But for some reason, myself and my sisters, we just didn't really cry. I have 3 sisters. We didn't cry. And I think because we know, at least I know for myself and my other 2 sisters, we stayed in that room. We stayed with my mom constantly. From the time I landed to the time I left, I stayed, until my mom passed. I stayed there with my mom. I rarely would go out to get food or anything. I stayed with my mom. So, I saw what she went through, and I think that's why I'm like, I'd rather her be at peace and not in pain and not struggling, not having to take a handful of pills, not having to, move and squirm and, is the pain okay? Or doctors coming in every 3 seconds and all of this stuff. It was done. She didn't have to deal with the crap. She didn't have to deal with that. She didn't have to deal with a body that's failing, not because she wanted it to fail, but because it was tired. She mentally wanted to keep going. She still wanted to be here. There's still things my mom wanted to do. But her body just said it can't do it anymore. And she pushed it all the way to the end, enough to the point of where right there, before she's about ready to pass, she tries to lift her arm to comfort her grown adult son, her youngest. And when I landed there and she saw me the first time, she smiled and said, "That's my baby boy." And something told me that she knows that the time is near. And this was when we weren't really sure what was going on. We weren't really sure if she wasn't going to make it. We thought everything would be okay until the doctors ran tests and they saw how bad it was. And the one doctor said, she's not going to be able to walk out of here. And my mom didn't think that. No one thought, unless God knew, but no one knew that when she walked in, she wasn't going to walk out. I think my mom knew deep down that she didn't have much longer. She had been doing a little bit here and there, teaching because my sister, she's doesn't know how to cook. She taught my sister how to cook just randomly. A few months ago, just start teaching her different things. So I think that she knew it was close, but I don't think she knew it was that day, that soon. And I don't think any of us could prepare enough for that. But anyhow, I'm dealing with it. I'm coping with it. We're all dealing with it in our own way. The girls are doing okay. Noelle's doing okay. But it's just a process. And I told them that it is a process. There's no way to speed it up. You just have to go through it. You have to pray. You have to keep busy. You have to do a lot of different things in order to make it through. And it will get a little bit better. I lost my dad when I was in high school. And I remembered that. But because my dad and I weren't super close, it wasn't as impactful. I cried more out of the pain of the fact that what could have been wasn't. He could have been more in my life. He could have done a lot more, and it didn't happen. I knew that was never going to happen. With my mom, she did everything. There was nothing more that she could actually, as far as I'm concerned, and I even told Noelle this, my mom is the queen. There's no woman in our family that can top my mom. She's the queen. You know, my wife's the princess. I'm the prince. You know, my sisters might be princesses, but my mom is the queen. Like everyone, still, during the service, everybody, whatever my mama thought, whatever she wanted, whatever she needed, that's what people went by. So I don't think she realized how much of an impact she made. I don't think a lot of great people understand that. But she made a tremendous impact. The man I am today, the person I am today, the person who loves the way I do, the person that seeks truth and wants to give that out there is because of my mother. And I'm going to deeply miss her. Anyhow, folks, I hope that you are having a good week. Make sure that you hug the person that you love, the people that you love. You never know when it's going to be the last time that you're going to see them. Tell them that you love them. You can't say I love you enough. You can't hug enough. You can't kiss a person enough. Talk to people. Talk to them. Let them know that you care. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.